Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Beautiful You. I'm your host, Avantika. Before we dive into this week's topic, I just wanted to give you a short update on what is happening with me so far. So, recently, I went to France for a volunteering program where I was living with a French family and I was helping them with English. I was there for about 4 weeks, and then after that, I traveled a bit. And boy, do I have stories to tell. I would be talking about them soon enough at some point on the podcast. But yeah, that trip was just like a sort of a vacation slash work for me, and I took a break from podcasting again. So yeah, you had consistent episodes in June, then I took a break in July, and after I got back, I have been just not feeling it. I've been dealing with this thing. I feel like an imposter. So I just wanted to make an episode about that, and which is what we will talk about today. You basically feel like a fraud, and you feel like you have constantly, lied to yourself and to others about everything that you've achieved so far, or the skills that you have, or the things that people appreciate about you. So I've been dealing with it since I was, 12 or 13, and it has been fairly constant in my life. With therapy, I've been able to recognize that, my imposter syndrome is acting up now. Like, these are the false beliefs which are going on right now, and it's not actually the reality. So, yeah, I've been feeling like an imposter with the whole podcast thing. Like, be it anything. Like, for instance, in my school days, I used to compete a lot in Olympiads and such, Olympiads, allocations, a lot of other extracurricular activities, and I have around like 40 plus medals in it, and I have physical evidence of it, and yet I feel like an imposter when I talk about it. I feel like, did that really happen though? Do I really deserve it, even though I remember that I worked my ass off for it? Or if I tell someone that, oh, I have a podcast, or I create content, or I write poetry and stuff, and they're like, oh, that's so cool, and I'm like, is it though? It's weird. It's certainly interesting. And the thing is, I'm self-aware enough to know that it's imposter syndrome, but also I'm not past it yet. So yeah, I've been procrastinating working on my podcast because I feel like, do people even care? Or is it even like worth it? Or is it even reaching the right audience? Is it even like something that is good enough? Stuff like that, So yeah, but we are moving past it. We are recognizing that that's imposter syndrome and not the actual reality, and we are just trying to do our best. So yeah, today's episode we'll be talking about this. So basically, many people who have an imposter syndrome, grew up in families that stressed achievement and success. If your parents went back and forth between overpraise and criticism, you're more likely to have feelings of being a fraud later in your life. And it's just not your parents. Even the societal pressures to achieve constantly can also contribute to this syndrome. I found a fun little test to see if you have imposter syndrome. So basically, I'll be giving you some statements, and if you agree to most of these statements, you might actually have dealt with imposter syndrome in the past, or you're dealing with it now. So here are the following statements. The first one is, even when I do well, I don't think I really deserve it. The second one, I worry that people will find out I'm not as smart as they think I am. Third statement, it's hard for me to accept compliments. Fourth, I feel like failing is not an option. Fifth, I hesitate to brag about my accomplishments. Sixth, I feel like I'm just making it up as I go. Seventh, I feel like I don't deserve any of the success I've attained. Eighth, I downplay my achievements because I don't think they are as amazing as people think they are. Ninth, I compare my abilities to those around me and feel like they are better than me. And 10th, I often worry about not succeeding with a project or examination, even though others around me have considerable confidence that I will do well. Now, obviously, this is not an official test or something, so don't, diagnose yourself with it or think that you have imposter syndrome just on the basis of it. But if you feel like you could just read up on it. Here are some tips that have helped me overcome or, you know, try to overcome imposter syndrome, because it certainly is less intense now at 19. Yeah. So the first one is, create reminders. Write down a list of accomplishments you're actually proud of. Save those, like write it in a notebook or in a journal. Keep those things, in places where you would actually be able to read them whenever you feel like a fraud. The second one is separating your feelings from reality. If you know you're prone to imposter feelings, mentally prepare yourself for it. Observe and respond to them accordingly. Realize that they are just emotions, and emotions are not necessarily your reality. Remind yourself that you are capable of success. If you are someone who believes in affirmations, try using that. I know there are a lot of people who don't necessarily believe in it, and so it doesn't really work on them. But if you do believe in them, that's definitely one of the options. The next one would be to quit comparisons. Don't measure yourself by other people's achievements. Like, for example, on social media, you only see a highlight reel of someone's life. This is not a good comparison to your own reality. I've noticed once I started college, I realized that it looks like people have their shit together, but more often than not, they really don't. Everyone is going through some sort of things, and they have some sort of uncertainty and some sort of chaos that they're dealing with. We only know a section of someone's life, so there's no point in comparing our own reality with someone else's, I don't know, just a highlight. The next one would be to understand the syndrome. I ended up reading a lot on the syndrome, trying to understand what it is, how it affects, why it affects you, the causes for it, and everything. Read, talk about it, go on Reddit. Honestly, Reddit is so helpful when you want to learn about, experiences that people have with certain things. So just try to understand the syndrome. It's funny because the very fact that you have an imposter syndrome shows that you're not an imposter. Because if you were an actual fraud, you wouldn't have an imposter syndrome, if that makes sense. Then the next one would be talk to someone about it. I feel like imposter syndrome is something that a lot of people go through, but we don't talk about it enough. Talking about it with your friends and family will help you normalize your feelings. The emotions that you're feeling, they are not your reality. If you are able to have access to professional help, go ahead and do that. They will help you develop tactics to overcome imposter syndrome. There's this one thing that my therapist had told me about it. So in one of our sessions, we were talking about how I feel like an imposter pretty much all the time. And he was mentioning how one of the main reasons why it happens is because you're used to listening to just one side of the dialogue in your head. Like, there are two sides in your head. The one which tells you that, oh, you are deserving of success, and the other one tells you that you're a fraud or tells some negative things about you, right? And you develop the syndrome, you feel like an imposter when you are used to listening to just one side of the head, one side of the dialogue, more than the other one. So what he told me was that the key here is to practice listening to the other side, to acknowledge that, oh, this is the side of the dialogue that I don't need to listen anymore. This is the side of the dialogue that is a part of the syndrome and is not going to help me in my life, in my development, and then listen to the other side more. It takes a lot of practice and it will take a lot of time, but you have to start somewhere. The other thing that helped me was reminding myself that nobody is perfect. It's weird because once you start college, it's a really tricky place because there are so many people from so many different interests and backgrounds, and it's hard to see where you fit in, and everybody wants to fit in, right? It's a very natural tendency or a want that humans have, and you start to set some unrealistic goals for yourself. You try to see where you go, you try to compare yourself often, and it's hard not to do that, honestly. But after like 1 year in college, I realized that there's literally no point in comparing myself to others, and everybody is going through something. Everyone is on their own path to whatever journey they are on. And yeah, it's just the key is to stop setting unrealistic expectations for yourself. With that being said, we would be coming towards the end of this week's episode. I truly apologize for being so inconsistent with my posting. If you have made it through the end, thank you very much. I really appreciate you listening to my podcast. I really appreciate any type of feedback you have or constructive criticism you have. It's always welcomed. I'm always looking to see how I can make it better, how I can make it more interactive, how I can make it more interesting for you. And if this episode gave you some insights into imposter syndrome, please let me know. I would highly appreciate that. You can always reach out to me on my email and Instagram. Feel free to do that. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful rest of the week. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. I love you.